Good afternoon, everybody. As Chris said, my name is Mel Blumenthal, and I am the Vice President of WOSAC. I'd like to welcome you all to our FIESTA Generation Storytelling event this afternoon. Before we get started with the show, a little bit about WOSAC, who we are and what it is we do. WOSAC is a community-based organization that supports, there we are. Hi! Now that everybody can hear me, a little bit about WOSAC. We are a community-based organization that supports the students, mission, and faculty of the Department of Gender and Women's Studies at the University of Arizona. Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll take it. We'll take that round of applause. We have some brochures and pamphlets outside, so if any of you are interested in getting some more information, and we certainly hope that you are, especially after today's show, please feel free to help yourselves to that. If you have any other questions, especially about becoming a member, to help support more events such as these, you can ask myself or some of the other board members here this evening. I'd say raise your hands because we have a lot of board members here, but you might not be able to see them in the dark house. We are more than happy to introduce ourselves to you after the show. So why storytelling? Well, we felt that was important. Storytelling is one of the oldest and most ancient art forms. Storytelling is also very female-centric. It was women, largely, who were handing down the stories of the cultures throughout the ages. Storytelling is also how we pass down our shared histories throughout time. It is how we communicate our thoughts and our desires. Storytelling is how we forge connection with each other, especially in places where perhaps we thought there weren't bridges that could be built. Most importantly, storytelling is how we build community, and that is a big part of the reason why we are here today. As you sit here and listen to our speakers, I am confident that many of you are going to hear echoes of your own experiences, and you will have those me too moments, and it is those that I encourage you to hold on to and consider. It is those moments that unite us, and hang on to those, especially as we live in an ever more increasing era of divisiveness. So that is why we feel storytelling is important, and we hope that you enjoy the show and continue to support storytelling throughout the community. And again, it is community that storytelling helps to forge. So, with that in mind, we have 5 phenomenal women here with you this afternoon who are going to do just that. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our first storyteller of this afternoon. Her name is Lavina, and Lavina Tomer has lived in Tucson since 1972. She has a rich journey with activism, community building, and LGBTQ plus history making and preserving. She is currently the volunteer executive director for the Southern Arizona Senior Pride. Please join me, yes! I don't need to tell you, so please join me in giving a very warm welcome, as you've already done, to the fabulous Lavina Tomer.
Hi everyone. I was thinking I would be able to see you all, but and say how nice it is to have your smiling faces, but I can't see a thing. There you are, smiling faces. Thank you. A nourishing space for women. A double rainbow was the deciding symbol to purchase the 165-acre Cave Canyon Ranch in Vail, Arizona. The buyer? 55-year-old visionary, Catherine Kittu Riddle, whose plan was to establish a nourishing space for women, a safe, women-run place to live, camp, and visit in this desert setting. Her dissertation, The Nourishment of Living Systems, was the blueprint for designing a place where women could nourish themselves spiritually and emotionally while building community. Women from all walks of life would nourish ourselves so that we could rejuvenate, regenerate, grow, and find new strength as we lived in and changed a patriarchal society. In June 1975, Kitu and I became the first residents. Our new home was rich with desert flora and fauna that neither of us were all that familiar with. It was dusk as I opened the door to leave the A-frame. Immediately, I was facing a javelina. Our eyes met for an instant with extreme shock. I quickly ran back into the house, slamming the door, and that young javelina took off on its stiff legs, running for its life. That night, I slept under a huge mesquite on the bank of the wash. The land needed to be cleaned, and the 3 houses needed maintenance. I learned how to get the swamp coolers repaired and working. Self-sufficiency was a priority for women everywhere. That meant learning new skills and making the decisions that would influence our lives. In August, Kitu went off to teach in State College, Pennsylvania, and I stayed on as the first caretaker of the land. I would reside there alone for months until women arrived to live and work at Nourishing Space. So my primary relationship was with the land. The land, with mountainsides, a canyon with acres of desert shrubs and cactus, a wide, dry wash, a shady mesquite bosque, a cave, houses, the A-frame, the cedar house and tree house, a well, running water, and electricity. It was ideal. There is so much to tell you about. Let me begin with the silence. It wrapped around me like a soft cocoon, keeping me safe while I transformed. It surrounded me and permeated my pores so that we became one. It caressed me with a strength that brought peace and anxiety, wonderment and uneasiness. That silence was a close companion that accompanied me throughout the days and nights, taking me places I'd never been before. Out of the silence and stillness of the desert, I observed much. While I sat quietly on an aged log in my front yard, a coyote walked down the wash, free-spirited, on the way from here to there, unaware that it was being watched. I felt delighted and honored to share the moment with its wily presence. My little hut, known as the treehouse, was a former tool shed and animal coop built around a sturdy mesquite. I claimed it as my own right away. My friend, Joan Pepper, helped me upgrade the structure by screening the windows that had no glass, putting down a raised wooden floor found at the junkyard, creating a bed that was on a workbench and covered with mosquito netting, and cleaning the place up. We did not put a door on right away. Our neighbors at the Colossal Cave told me that there was a report of a mountain lion in the area. I noted the information and went on with the day. After a sound sleep, I woke up, and right outside where the door should have been, thank you, were huge paw prints. I had a visitor. I managed to put that door on by myself immediately. Nighttime had its adventures as well. I still cannot believe that I ever slept while alone on the desert in the darkness. For a while, I would wake up and hear the scraping across the table. I laid very still until it was over, then went back to sleep. I figured out that a pack rat was coming in and stealing away with shiny things like forks, spoons, and jewelry that I had left out on the table. I was amused and laughed out loud to myself as I came up with a plan. It was easy. I no longer left anything out that would be desirable for my little friend to take back to its nest. It worked. Another memorable night, I woke up to a monster thunder and lightning storm. I was looking out as the lightning flashed and was terrified that I would see a person standing there. I rolled over and said, "I am really scared." It was amazing. Acknowledging that I was afraid calmed me down, and I fell into a deep sleep. Daytime and nighttime, I was alone. There were days when I talked with no one or with a few people on the phone. Well, I talked to myself constantly. In an insightful conversation with myself, I stated that I needed to learn to play alone like I used to as a child. So I would dance and sing in the wash, walk all over the property with an acute curiosity, sleep in all three structures as I wanted, talk to and hug the trees, and name the loud flock of mourning doves hanging out in the saguaros, the rowdy bunch. It wasn't exactly play, but I loved staying busy by taking junk and garbage to the dumpsters in the neighboring campground, organizing the tools, maintaining the houses, and learning to identify the desert plants in my 165-acre yard. I worked with a Tucson woman to mail a newsletter and to create an engaging brochure about nourishing space with lovely pictures, inspiring information, and a poem that I wrote while sitting on a hillside. Women trickled in. A small group of us gathered to watch a full eclipse of the moon. I had never seen an eclipse before. The darkness of the night there was incomparable. The ink-black sky was the backdrop to the bright, bright moon as it was slowly covered by the earth. Eventually we were consumed by the darkness and waited for the light to return. The night sky out there was unbelievable, with the Milky Way, planets, and constellations on display. Late summer, we had to get 130 feet of new water pipe laid from the A-frame to the well. I rented a ditch witch and had it delivered, bought the PVC pipe and couplings from a young lesbian at a plumbing warehouse, and put the call out for help. Help streamed in from Phoenix and Tucson. A plumber, Jody, was advising us and providing her tools. A dozen women spent several days digging, laying the pipes, waiting for the glue to dry, and shoveling the dirt back into the ditches. What a project. What an accomplishment for all of us. That November we had a Thanksgiving potluck. Women arrived from Tucson with delicious food and appreciation for this new gathering place. I was ecstatic to have company and to see women roaming the land. After their departure, I was alone again, but filled with the laughter and warmth of their sweet presence. It was getting cold, and I had to move into the A-frame from the treehouse. I opted to set up my bedroom in a ladder that in a loft that I accessed by a ladder. I did not sleep well. I couldn't see the front door. I felt a cutting vulnerability, a terror really. One night I dreamt that I heard the toilet flush, and I got up to look down to the first floor. There was a scrawny, ugly, green man climbing the ladder. I put my hand on his shoulder and yelled, "Stop, you can't come up here." He disappeared. The dream ended. Needless to say, the next morning I moved my bedroom out of the loft to a downstairs room. Living alone at Nourishing Space was remarkable. The land, the relationships, the responsibilities molded me forever. All of that loneliness, isolation, and terror that had been traveling with me for years were revealed in that silence and beauty. As winter approached, more women started to visit. It was as if they appeared from outer space. They would let me know they were on their way, but then suddenly appear at the gate as if they had teleported from another location. In December and January, women arrived who wanted to live and work at Nourishing Space. I was part of a collective. The tables had turned. Several women were inspired to change their names after they arrived. I had already lived with Dandelion and Morning Waters. Now I was living with Jasper, Saguaro, Choya, Cheyenne, Karobi, and Ka. As a collective, we improved the land, built new structures, and supported each other. We were safe and free-spirited, walking bare-breasted and bare-assed around the property. A nourishing space for women would welcome and influence hundreds of women until 1978. That double rainbow still lives within so many of us. Thank you.
Please give another round of applause for Lavina. When we all first heard that story, we were just like, wow, and I was inspired. I was like, that would be incredible just to live on the land like that. And there's this voice in my head. And then the other side of the voice was like, oh, be serious. You won't even go camping. Lavina's just an amazing writer. Like, yes, that is accurate. But what beautiful imagery and an incredible story. And we talk about the shared histories of sort of the earliest feminist movement. So thank you, Lavina, for bringing that to our stage. Wonderful. All right. Our next storyteller is Gina. Gina is a Tucson native, speech pathologist, wife, and mother of 3 very loud children. But they are here to support her today. She also serves on the board of FIST, Female Storytellers, and is a regular favorite on the FIST stage. Please give a warm welcome to Gina.
Thank you. I love this mic. The whole time I was thinking, I get to talk into this mic. I invited my teenagers to come, and because I feel like it's very important for them to be in this context and hear these stories. And the only question they had was if there was food. So we appreciate the red grab bags, and I think we pretty much, I think they have got all the chips so far in the snack bar. Okay. Here we go. We worked in front of a high tabletop, stove, and sink. She expertly chopped onions and green peppers with a dull knife as she chatted quickly and lightheartedly. I, new to the crude but adequate kitchen arrangement, watched as she sauteed the peppers and onions seconds before tossing in her rinsed rice. I enjoyed the sound of moistened rice hitting the hot pan. To my silent horror, she scooped up huge spoonfuls of salt, which she mixed into the rice, adding water. We stood there silent at this point, both in our flip-flops and shorts, she my teacher, this our daily routine. I took up the job of peeling unripened guineos, plantains. My thumbs felt raw under my nails. Yaki, my sister-in-law, had shown me how to cut the bananas down its spine, poking the knife just so as not to cut into the fruit inside. With my fingers, I attempted to pry open the peeling, trying and failing to leave no skin on the still hard fruit before husking the green cascara off. I was slow and inefficient, more than half the time, needing to cut off pieces of the rough peel with a knife. She directed me to toss the fruit, brown to my soiled hands, into boiled water until she eventually found a small pot to boil them. She was 22 to my 29 years of age. Neither of us could have imagined this chance encounter. But due to unexpected life circumstances, I found myself 1,000 miles from home in a small, rural, dusty, humid, hot, lovely town in Honduras. Her hometown, also the birthplace of my husband, William. My little family and I, including my husband, 4-year-old son, Will Jr., and 2-year-old daughter, Ana Luisa, found ourselves as temporary residents as we waited for my husband to be granted permission to re-enter the United States. We were told it could take 6 to 12 months because he had lived illegally for a short time in the Midwest before we met. William, anticipating this challenge, had worked and saved. For the first 6 years of our marriage, he had hid cash in various parts of the house, unknown to me in case of an emergency. For the record, he doesn't do this anymore. Easily accessible and without the hassle of prejudiced bank tellers who frequently had to get supervisor approval before handing him his own money. With this savings, we were able to keep our family together, at least for part of the time it would take for him to be approved for his visa back home. I subsequently became an ama de casa, or a housewife / stay-at-home mom. A role which had never made my, if I could be anything in the world, what would I want to be? I was a working mom. I was a highly educated speech therapist. I chose not to stay home as a wife or with kids. I preached to my friends and my cousins the benefits of working, the autonomy, the independence, of making, the importance of making your own money, etc., etc. Staying home with my kids, never. Until God's plan took me on a completely different trajectory to Central America, to be a full-time mom, completely dependent on my husband for money, transportation, food, in a foreign country with language and cultural differences. Little did I know I was in over my head. And to make matters worse, William decided to return to what he grew up doing, taking care of cattle. An occupation which took him out of the house from dawn to late afternoon on most days. Yaki, my sister-in-law, became my lifeline to the ins and outs of daily life in this small town. She became my companion, my comadre. She helped me with my kids, making sure Will Jr. bathed every night after a day climbing trees and peeling mangoes. She brushed and braided Ana Luisa's curly hair. Together, we hauled water from the pila to our washing machine to save me the daunting, back-breaking task of washing mounds of laundry by hand. She taught me how to hang clothes on the line so they would crease in just the right places. Yaki was willing to do anything to make my life comfortable, with the exception of attending Sunday evening mass with me. Throughout all of our activities, like women, we tended to talk a lot, getting to know everything about each other. She had always had tons of questions to ask me. And your mom, Gina, tell me about her. Do you like it here? When you go back, will you forget me? Always with a wide grin, her full lips smiling over perfect teeth. Sometimes we were interrupted by her husband or mother-in-law, both quick to speak loudly and assertively to her. For an instant, the ease of life would vanish, and she would bow her head, attending whatever household task she was doing. Secretly, she would roll her eyes at me or make faces, then move swiftly to find a new shirt for my brother-in-law or add more salt to our lunch because someone thought it lacked taste. Our conversations initially were superficial. What color do you like? How many siblings do you have? Do you always have short hair? Then as I became more familiar with the town and its inhabitants, she would fill me in on the gossip or talk about other Americans who had visited. As we became closer, our questions became more intimate, my questions more personal. Did you get married because you're going to have a baby? She changed the subject. She would chat about her father, who rarely visited and drank often, her mother, who cared for her 97-year-old grandmother in a one-room mud hut in the neighborhood up the lane, her brother living in Washington, sent what he could to her family, but considering they were numerous with many requests, he often sent very little. Her other brother, left widowed when his wife gave birth to their second child, a boy named Harold, and his love of hard liquor. The dilemma of raising his kids in his presence, yet in his absence. I nodded, sighed, laughed, and gasped sincerely, concentrating as her rapid Spanish flowed from her mouth, and my brain filling blocks behind. As we spent more time together, she trusted me with more information. Yes, she had gotten married because she got pregnant. She was studying, the first in her family to go so far, and only a year away from earning her diploma. She explained that her school did not allow unwed pregnant girls to attend, so they married. A small affair in the very living room we took turns sweeping every morning. She showed me the pictures, her face serious as she danced with her new husband. The future undetermined but quite clear. She was now a wife, soon to be a mother. Once she showed me her marriage certificate, pulling it out of a manila envelope she kept in the top drawer of her son's dresser, joking sadly that more than once she would have liked to rip it to pieces. In the next breath, offering to show me a humble collection of earrings and bright plastic rings she had collected over the years. We would meet daily to conquer our family duties. Yaki would drag me along to buy groceries for lunch for our huge family. Our kids, Ana Luisa and Jose, tagging along behind us. We followed her lead as she strategically shopped for groceries to save money. Each item was bought at a different pulperia, depending on the price. It also meant walking block after block around town over rocky dirt roads. Tomatoes and potatoes had to be bought at Nena's, cooking oil at Roberto's, especias at Lidia's. When we had many items, she would hold one end of the sack and I would hold the other to lighten the load. Sometimes with Ana Luisa on one hip because she was too lazy to walk. Once in a while, if we were lucky, our mother-in-law would forget her umbrella, which we would snatch up so we would be shaded on our trek around town. Then back home to cook. If there was enough time to spare, we would take a break. The kids would play with Jose's small amount of cars and farm animals. We would sit on the hammock side by side like two schoolgirls, sharing a Pepsi. Swinging back and forth, chatting about nothing and everything, she would tease me. You never thought you'd be doing this, ¿verdad, Gina? I would respond in agreement. Nunca. Before this trip, the idea of being a stay-at-home mom with my kids had been as foreign to me as boiled green plantains. The time I spent day in and day out with my sole responsibility to raise my kids helped me evolve as their mother. The subtleties of their personalities, things I had not noticed before, became clear. I learned how to read their moods and appreciate the things I previously had found annoying or challenging. I learned how to be the mom and be the confident, unapologetic mom. It couldn't have happened without the support from my young sister-in-law, Yaki. In the 6 months I spent with her, I fell in love with her. My sister's soulmate. She was the rock that held me, that held all us together. This ama de casa, this housewife, this stay-at-home mom. Eventually, the U.S. Embassy in Tegucigalpa called us, informing us William's paperwork had been approved and we could return home to Arizona. I was overwhelmed with relief, but I couldn't help grieving. I knew the future meant seeing Yaki every 1 to 2 years on summer vacations. We enjoyed our final days together doing what we typically did. She would tease like she did. Take me with you. We can hide Jose in your maleta. I'll clean your house and brush Anna's hair. And I would say to her, I don't know, amiga. I'm very picky and I really don't even like Honduran food. Then we'd go back to the crude kitchen to enjoy the last few days we had, and she would put me to work peeling green, unripe bananas. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Gina. And what an incredible reminder of how women in other nations experience being a woman. So thank you, Gina, for a beautiful story. All right. Our next storyteller to the stage is Cassandra, also our fabulous videographer, one of them. Cassandra, her bio, crippled by a variety of neuroses and driven by a constant need for verbal affirmation, Cassandra frequently emerges from her life of seclusion into the public eye, where she commands the stage by literally just pushing everybody else off. And if that's not enough, she constantly insists upon being the center of attention in every gathering, obsesses about every outfit, and is overdressed for every occasion. She is a 40-something, trans-something, woman-something, living in something like a house somewhere outside of Tucson. When asked recently what she wanted to do with her life, she replied, "What are you saying? That I'm not doing anything in my life right now? Why would you criticize me like that? Do you think I like living like this? And why haven't you said anything nice about my makeup or my outfit? You saw me like 10 minutes ago." Please give a warm welcome to the stage, Cassandra.
Thank you. Wow, who writes these bios? That was kind of offensive, wasn't it? Okay, I have to rearrange my environment. Just a minute here. I need 40 hands. Okay.
Great outfit.
Oh, thank you. Oh, right. See the highlighting, the contouring work there? Okay.
Really like the stocking.
Wow, I feel so verbally affirmed right now. This is great, you guys. Okay, can I talk now, or do we, I'm totally fine to wait if we need to do more of this. Okay. First of all, as I was sitting back there listening to the stories, looking around the room, I couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed and a little scared and a little bit like, I don't belong here type of feelings, and grateful that y'all have included me. And as I read my story, I hope you'll see why that is. So thank you, Mel. I have presented at FST a couple of times, but this to me is more intimidating. I don't know why. Okay. I need another finger to do my phone. Okay. Often when people meet me for the first time, I see a burning question behind their eyes. WTF? Do we need to explain that to the boomers? No, okay. I just wanted to see who would answer boomer. There's a big section over here. It's just as well they don't ask this question out loud, because I actually don't know how to answer. I had a wonderful childhood. I was raised in a home with two loving parents who loved us and each other. They were hardworking people. They didn't abuse us sexually or physically or emotionally. I'd say it was an ideal childhood. So what went wrong with me? I've never used any controlled substance illegally. I've never even had alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't even believe in sex outside of marriage. So what the heck? I should be normal, right? Well, I grew up in a very conservative Christian environment, and I was happy that way. I liked it just fine. I was always taught to be true to my principles, to be strong and independent. But there's a downside to teaching kids to be strong and independent. We're completing each other's sentences. This was meant to be. Yes, I grew up strong and independent and started making my own decisions. My dad grew up playing football and basketball. He and his brother were high school sports ball stars. Whatever sport, you just throw it in there, sports ball. In fact, it was so bad that his dad would shovel the walks. They lived up where it snowed a lot. His dad would shovel the walks in the winter because he didn't want the boys to wear out their shooting arm and throw their shot off. He was determined they would be great sports stars. Meanwhile, his sister was inside with his mother making the food and cleaning the house. Well, he decided to raise me the same way. And I really loved that starting out. I got to spend a lot of quality time with my dad, playing sports, having fun, learning to, develop my physical talents and all those kinds of things. It was an enjoyable time. It was family time. It was together time. Except that my brother, 2 years younger, was always better than me at everything. And it was infuriating. I got in trouble a couple times because I got so mad at him when we were on the court for showing me up in some way or another. Well, anyway, eventually, as we got a little older, they enrolled us in Little League sports. Now, suddenly, Little League sports is no longer about fun time with your dad. Okay, I was going to explain that, but I guess I don't have to. All of a sudden, it's about being yelled at for not being in the right place at the right time by a bunch of kids you didn't even want to be there with anyway. Oh my goodness, it was miserable. But that was not the worst. Eventually, I got into junior high and had to take PE class, and I discovered locker rooms and group showers. I won't ask her to raise a hand how many of y'all have ever been in the guy's locker room. I'll just tell you about it. I got so tired of smelly dudes waving their funky junk around and saying gross things about girls. I was mortified. I was disgusted. I did not want to be in there. Okay. Oh, speaking of girls, I really liked girls. I liked pretty much everything about girls. I liked the way they looked, the way they moved, the way they smelled, the way their hair flowed, the way their clothes flowed. I could go on and on. I wanted to be with them. I wanted to just be with the girls. I wanted to hang out with them. I wanted to talk with them. I wanted to be like them. Wait, what? Oh, that's not allowed. Eventually, when I was around 12, I sneaked in secret and tried on a couple of my mom's things. And I loved the way it felt. I don't know why. I can't explain why to this day. It just felt so fulfilling to me to imagine myself in that role. And it wasn't long before my parents found out and explained to me that that was absolutely not okay. And that was not my role and I didn't belong there. They went on. Am I making it hard enough for you with the camera work? I try and keep moving. You might have to loosen up that tripod because I can see I'm totally out of frame right now. Okay. Sorry. There's that attention hog coming out again. Where was I? I don't know. They told me it was not okay. They said people will make fun of you. I said, can I just live as a girl? No, people will make fun of you, and that's just not right. So I stopped for quite a while, but eventually I started having these urges again, and I would again start in secret. And then they'd eventually discover me because I wasn't very sneaky. I was a good kid. I was not used to sneaking around and hiding things from my parents. I never had anything to hide ever before. I had no porn magazines under my mattress. I had no little roll of weed stuffed wherever people stuff their weed. Why am I looking at Mel? I don't know. You just seem really connected to that phrase. It's a good thing the lights are up. This is so much more enjoyable when I can see who's guilty out there. Where was I? Oh yeah, I didn't know how to hide anything. And I was very honest, always honest about everything. So it was so hard for me to have this huge part of me growing that I constantly felt the need to hide from the people that I loved and respected the most in the world. Eventually, I ended up getting married to a woman because I like women. And we had kids together, but in our marriage, I tried to come out to her and express to her my feminine side in just small ways. Can I do this? And it's really interesting, but when you say, oh, I'm very sensitive, I want to talk about feelings. Women are like, great, that's great, that's great. And then I say, oh, and I want to wear this sexy little thing in the bedroom. And they're like, whoa, who are you? I don't know, maybe that's a little too personal, sorry about that. I had 2 marriages that both ended in divorce, and me wanting to express the feminine side of myself was a huge challenge in both of those relationships. And it was something that I tried many times, many ways to get over with. Going to different counselors, talking to religious leaders, talking to my parents, having big interventions with my parents where they show up suddenly. And I don't really blame them for these things. They were acting on what they felt was my best interest. Excuse me while I do a little pinky finger scrolling. Okay, but I did not hate growing up male or being a guy in general. In fact, I enjoyed and still do a lot of things that society considers masculine, like building tree huts, but somebody here already mentioned building tree huts. Hey, it's okay, right? Building tree huts, playing Space Invaders on Atari, learning to program computers, messing around with sound systems and video systems, doing a lot of rugged outdoor activities like hiking, camping, exploring old mines and caves, and anything involving heights and danger. I definitely had YMIS. You know what that is? Young Male Immortality Syndrome? I kind of still do. Shh. That's a part of my former self I'm not quite willing to give up. And it's really convenient to be able to get ready in 5 minutes for anything. What is it? Okay, a clean t-shirt and the same jeans and sneakers you wore every other day. There you go. What's a mirror for? I don't know, don't need one. I've often ridiculed girls who missed out on some fun activity because they were worried about wrecking their clothes or messing up their hair or breaking a nail or ruining their makeup, and I thought those kinds of girls were just being vain. But at the same time, I also kind of wish that I could be one of those girls and do those things. And I wish that women could feel the same way about me when I saw them. Yeah, did I say that? Yeah, okay, I missed something there, but you got it. So about 2 years ago, following my divorce, I found myself living in a shack in the desert, as my intro said, and I decided this is my time to explore this other side of myself. And I had a lot of questions. What about religious concerns? What about family problems? And I just put all of that on hold for a little while and said, I'm just going to experience and experiment with this. So I looked online for some support groups, and I found out there was a gender support group in Tucson. I found out that there were accepting churches in Tucson that I could attend. And I just started going places, scared to death, not looking great. I started going places and meeting people and finding a good support group. And that was huge and helpful to me. And one of those amazing support groups I already mentioned was FST. That they said, see that little asterisk in our name? That little buddy is for you. Thank you for that. So what an interesting journey it's been. Rebooting my life in a new town, starting over, completely new group of friends, trying to learn on my own all the rules for society, for getting along as a female. It's given me a chance to think carefully about everything I do, and it's been overwhelming and discouraging. I decided 2 attributes that for me have always been attributed with femininity that I wanted to emulate were beauty and kindness. I thought, I want more of that. I want to be more of that. I want to do more of that. So I've worked on that a lot. Of course, I started by taking about 10,000 pictures of myself to make sure that I looked the way I wanted to look, that I was presenting myself the way I wanted to present myself. That 10,000 is not an exaggeration. That's actually a low number. And I've also had many conversations with friends who must think I'm completely neurotic, always asking, how am I doing on this? How's my voice? Am I being polite enough? Do I move gracefully? Am I listening enough? Are you sure there's not a delicate way that I can slurp the rest of the ketchup out of this little packet? And are you really not going to finish those fries and just leave them there? Letting food go to waste, that's one of those things that's really hard for me to let go of. One thing, though, that I learned very early in life, and that has helped me in this journey, how's your angle now, was, one thing I learned that's helped me in this journey is don't let other people tell you who you are. You tell them who you are. And so, even though they may try really hard to put you in a different category than where you want to be, I found I just present myself the way I want to be viewed, and eventually, maybe not at first, but eventually people come around to that. And nowadays, I go pretty much everywhere in Tucson. Tucson has been an amazing, accepting place, and it was nothing like the horror story that I thought would happen when I came out. Now, I don't pass as a biological woman. I know that. I'm way too tall. And so I have some other features that I don't need to point out in detail that just make that not a possibility. And I've complained to this about other girlfriends, and I'm like, yeah, but this, and face this, and body this, and they're like, welcome to womanhood. They're like, guess what? Every single woman in the world goes through what you're experiencing right now, constantly being self-conscious about body image because of the messages and the pressure from society and everything. And when I try and see myself as a woman, then I automatically try and fit myself into those boxes. And for me, there's some boxes that I just don't fit into at all, like shoes, for crying out loud. Okay, but now I go everywhere in Tucson. I go to the mall, I go to the grocery store, I use the women's restroom, and yet I've never tried to sneak and peek over the stall and see a girl. No, I just did my business. I don't know what the big deal is, people. I've even gone swimming in a public pool. Nobody freaked out. Nobody grabbed their children and ran screaming. Everyone was just nice and it was fine. And I have pictures if you need to see them. Just talk to me. Okay. Every once in a while, though, or maybe every twice in a while, I see a bad photo of myself, or I hear a recording of my voice, and I just freak out. I'm like, ew, I'm gross. Why do you people treat me nice? I don't understand why you would do that. I go into deep despair, and I say, what am I doing? I just sound like such a freak. I look like such a freak. Sometimes it's very hard to shut out those voices. For me, basically, my whole life since I was 12, I wished that I could pass. Then nobody would give me crap about where I wanted to go or what I wanted to wear or who I wanted to talk to. But in going public, I just had to come to terms with the fact that that's not a reality for me. I'm never going to be hidden in the crowd. For one thing, I stick out a foot above them. And so I decided I have to accept that. And that turns out that's a good thing. Because rather than just being lost in the crowd, I can actually stand for something and maybe make it easier for other people further down the road. But here's an unfortunate side effect. As soon as I start getting myself to a level where I feel like, oh, maybe I could be attractive. Maybe I could fit into this mold of femininity. Guess who's there? A bunch of guys who see me as nothing more than a sex object. Where have I heard that before? Every woman ever? It has been remarkable as I started going out, trying to find places that I could be accepted. So naturally I'd go, to the gay bars, to the place where the other trans people or where the drag queens hang out, even though I don't at all consider myself a drag queen. That's a whole different thing, but if we want to talk about the differences there, that's another subject. Anyway, go to these places and just get these horrible advances from guys that just don't care at all who you are. As long as you've got some orifice on your body that they could ram their thing into, then they're good. Whoa, sorry, was that a little too... You know the thing, okay. It doesn't, yeah. Okay. And I try to explain to them, you being turned on does not equal me being interested. Hello, guys, do you even hear yourselves? No, I dress this way because it makes me feel nice. Yes, I would like other people to think that I feel nice as well, but I don't need to get all up in my business, thank you very much. And so they start on, and I've got this whole other spiel I gave the other night that I'm not going to go to about all the gross advances I've got from a lot of different guys. But what it all boils down to is this. You ought to be able to say no and have your boundaries respected. Does anyone feel that way? I was like, thank you in advance, but I don't want to dance. I don't need your hands all over me. If I want a man, I'ma get a man, but it's never my philosophy. My name is no, my number is no, my sign is no. You need to let it go. You need to let it go. You need to let it go. Like one day those words from Meghan Trainor just hit me and I'm like, oh, I get it now. Totally get that song. Okay, past the lyrics, got that. So now it's possible, no, it's definitely true that not all guys are like this. I probably have a skewed sample because the places I've been going and so, you know, as I go out to more acceptable locations like the mall or Bookman's, I always hope things are going to be different. So far, not yet. So far, that's still who I get is creepy guys who want to drag me into the supply closet at Bookman's, or out into a little creepy old man in the mall comes up to me and wants to go out, wants to know if I have a car and if we can go out and get in his car. Right then in the mall parking lot at like 10 in the morning. Like, dude, you've got issues. So, you know what, guys, maybe now I understand why I didn't like your stupid sports ball. It's all about, I mean, come on, it's all just one big metaphor innuendo thing, right? It's all about you grab your stick and your balls and you try and force them past the boundary and into that hole. It's all about overwhelming the forces, the opposing forces' defenses and declaring dominance, getting them face down on the field. And I'm sorry. Is that not true? Oh my gosh, sports ball. But for me, relationships are not about that, and they never have been. They've never been a competition. They've been about enjoying each other for who we are now, while exploring transitions into who we might like to become in the future. They're about kindling the sparks of beauty and kindness within each of us, and supporting each other's values and dreams, even if that means we sometimes wear the other team's color. Meanwhile, I'll keep working on developing my true colors, and maybe, once people get over their initial shock, they'll decide that WTF stands for, well, that's fantastic. Oh, you want this?
All right. Well, welcome, Cassandra. Give it up one more time. I think it's safe to say you definitely have a home here with us. And may I just add, feel free to eat the fries, girl. Eat those fries. No shame. No shame in the fry game. All right. Our next storyteller is Bella Vivante. Bella is a professor emerita from, as Bella affectionately calls it, the belly of the beast, otherwise known as the University of Arizona. She taught in the classics department in ancient Greek literature and culture. She is currently a storyteller, actor, folk dancer, and she leads wonderful trips to Greece, and there is actually some literature about those trips out on the table. So if you have any questions regarding that, she'll be more than happy to answer those for you. Please give a warm welcome to what I refer to also as a treasure, Bella Vivante.
My story is 70 years of feminist, and I fudged on the dates just a little bit. Anyway, my path to becoming a feminist has been a long and winding road, and here are some of the stepping stones that brought me to who I am today. In 1951, Atlanta, Georgia, when we were 5 years old, My cousin Hannah and I were sitting on her front porch swing. I was wearing pants and sitting with my knees up. My cousin said very smugly to me, "I can't sit like that because I'm wearing a skirt." In my 5-year-old mind, I thought, well, what's the point of wearing a skirt if you can't sit the way you want to sit? So I regard this incident as an early proto-feminist awareness, whose implications I wasn't aware of then. Though I remembered the incident as somehow foundational, I was to face more profound challenges to my female identity. My brother was born when I was 7 years old. I wasn't allowed in the room at his bris, the ritual circumcision, but I knew what was happening, and I remember his howl at the ritual cutting. His wail at the small physical snipping vocalized my internal cries at the stunting of my emotional and spiritual being. My Eastern European Orthodox Jewish parents now favored my brother over me in all things, and I followed my mother into a shadowy existence. Being raised in the 1950s Atlanta, Georgia, reinforced these skewed gender ideas. In the 8th to 10th grades, I was a math major. My female math teacher was also my counselor. I excelled in math, but instead of an academic track, she put me on a secretarial one. Now, I'm not tossing any shade at secretaries. I worked for a very long time as a secretary, so the training proved invaluable, and I know what a critical and unappreciated job that usually is. In these adverse environments, I struggled to find a place to grow fully as a human being. I was introduced to feminist ideas in New York City in 1969 to 70, which expanded in the Bay Area, California in the 1970s and 80s. Ideas we consider basic now were new and radical at the time, such as that the personal is political, or the consciousness about the intersectionality of class, race, gender, and sexuality issues. Important influencers in the early days of growing feminist awareness often began with claiming our physical bodies. The book, Our Bodies Ourselves, originally hand-bound, stapled together newsprint pages, opened our eyes to our physical nature. In CR, most of you know, consciousness-raising groups, we first talked about down there, some vague area we weren't supposed to touch or know anything about. The hidden, mysterious cave. It was the source of monthly cramps, called by some the curse. A smelly, dirty place that required major hygiene and was frequently a source of deep mortification. And then it changed. Okay, it changes. Betty Dotson's vagina slideshows were held, oh great, some of you know, all right, were held in huge auditoriums of women. What had been hidden was being proudly, publicly displayed, the diverse flowers of our femaleness. Afterwards, we sat in small groups comparing our genitals, our labia, using plastic specula to examine our own insides. The radical act of viewing our bodies as few women did. And we all noted that, like their facial features, the two sisters' genitals resembled each other. We reclaimed our bodies and our sexuality, which meant reclaiming our lives. Many early feminist spokeswomen articulated society's unequal gender dynamics and spearheaded ways to address it. Bra burning, Ms. Magazine, affecting changes in law, working conditions, and more. This is an interaction I had with an early feminist leader. I was working as a waitress at an Italian restaurant in the West Village in New York City when a known feminist with 3 friends came in and sat at my station. They were the sloppiest diners I have ever served. It looked like they had emptied their plates of spaghetti and marinara sauce onto the table. They treated me rudely and left me a paltry tip. I was outraged. How dare these upper-class white women claim to be feminist leaders and treat me, a working woman, so abominably? Articulating class issues was not yet part of the feminist discourse. Nor did I know that theoretical and academic feminism did not automatically translate into personal conduct. Much easier, right? Over the years, I've participated in the first Take Back the Night march and rally in San Francisco that was unfortunately elided out of news coverage by the murder of Representative Ryan at Jonestown. I remember Speaker Andrea Dworkin asserting that women cannot experience authentic sexuality in patriarchy. The opening of Judy Chicago's art installation, The Dinner Party, at the San Francisco Museum of Art, that displayed vagina-image dinner plates, each one representing a woman in history, set on a large banquet-sized triangular table. When I started my studies, there were no women's studies programs, though several female professors raised feminist-informed questions. I helped develop CROW, Center for Research on Women, while I was a graduate student at Stanford University, and then the Women's Studies Department, or program rather, at Emory University, where I had my first professorship. In my professional career, I've engaged in many feminist, women's and gender studies, and diversity development curricula, organizations, commissions, committees, panels, workshops, and so on ad nauseum. Here are some early reactions to my incorporating feminist ideas in my teaching and research. Like many, I had to excise any feminist ideas from my dissertation. My stereotypical British advisor merely raised an eyebrow when I mentioned incorporating feminist ideas. That told me everything I needed to know. The first class I taught at Emory University as an assistant professor of classics, Greek mythology, a subject filled with goddesses and gods, heroines and heroes. On their course evaluations, one student criticized that, quote, half, and just in case I might not know what half means, that student added in parentheses, 50% of the questions on the final were about women. What a travesty. Based on 2 anti-feminist comments out of 60 students at my annual evaluation, my senior professor, a very conservative older white male, told me to cut out my feminist remarks. I replied that my comments were only a drop in the bucket of this masculinist education system. He almost had a stroke on the spot. I'm sure he'd never heard the term masculinist in his life. I had some profound personal experiences on my feminist journey. The first was the radical act of coming out sexually. Though I espoused feminist ideas theoretically, much of my personal life repeated early gender conditioning. My revolts against this conditioning did not raise my low self-esteem in interactions with men. I came out after a particularly bad year of relations with men when I was studying in Greece. Coming out radically reshaped my sense of myself. My identity was now based on myself, not on any relation to a man. This shift in how I positioned my identity instantly raised my self-esteem. It was incredibly freeing, mentally, psychically, and spiritually. The following year, I hooked into a Berkeley women's community filled with writers, artists, women's spirituality rights. This was for me a fertile time of expanding female enlightenment. A second major experience is my direct and personal contact since 1980 with Native Americans, from whom I've learned their traditional valuing of women, women's roles, female aspects of life, and more, all of which majorly transformed my life. I have been strongly inspired by Native women's strong, culturally validated sense of their own identity and their central critical roles in their communities. I've incorporated Native American women's distinctive approach to feminism and women's roles in my teaching and research, and I developed a gynocentric theoretical approach to studying ancient women that has formed the basis of my publications. My almost 40-year relationship with my Seminole Creek spouse has deepened my understanding of Native American women's roles and cultural values, both personally and professionally. All these personal and professional steps have brought me to today, privileged to help celebrate the WOSAC FIESTA storytelling event. Thank you all. But picking him up is now the challenge. I'll leave it till later.
We'll get him. You earned the right to leave him. Oh, Bella. Give it up one more time for Bella Vivante. And thank you for all of the work that you have done. Honestly, if it wasn't for you and the scholars like you, departments like the Department of Gender and Women's Studies quite literally would not exist. So, we applaud you. All right. Our final storyteller of the afternoon happens to also be a WOSAC board member. It is Rose Snyder. After growing up in Phoenix and going to the University of Arizona, the belly of the beast, Rose's passion for swimming drew her to Colorado to work for USA Swimming at the Olympic Training Center. She met her husband, Charlie, while working for USA Swimming, and they raised their 3 children in Colorado Springs. Her work with the Olympic swimming movement helped her establish Rose Snyder Consulting, and involved doing governance consulting work for dozens on the national sports governing bodies. This work includes board training, strategic planning, and team building. Most recently, she has worked within the field of education, helping leaders discover how to transform their teachers and staff into high-performing teams. She also enjoys and leads women's retreats that focus on personal and professional development. Rose currently serves as a board member on WOSAC and Junior Achievement of Arizona. She is also excited to be a part-time swim coach for the La Paloma swim team. Please join me in welcoming Rose Snyder.
Thank you. And you know, I feel like it's the Academy Awards when you say it's such an honor to be up, but I kind of feel like I don't belong here. I felt like when Cassandra said that, I thought, oh my goodness, this is a little exciting and overwhelming. So I'd like to start off first by saying I was inspired to share this story because of my relationship with my daughters. Both women and gender scholars at Pacific Lutheran University. Carly is now a PhD student in New York, but Gina is graduating this spring. And we were talking about gender equity. I have learned so much in the last 4 or 5 years through my girls. I was sharing some stories of things that happened to me early in my career in gender equity, and my daughter Carly's mouth about hit the floor. Mom, you're kidding. And I thought, oh my gosh, we just continue each generation to stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And it was shocking to me that the situations where I experienced some discrimination were shocking to her. And I thought, this is important to share this story. So Mel encouraged me to share that story. So in the way of context, I want to share something with you. I do come from the athletic world. In 1972, Title IX was passed, and I'm sure everybody in here knows what Title IX means, but for me as a young person, once again, standing on those shoulders, it meant that I got to experience high school swimming all 4 years of high school. And when I came to swim at the University of Arizona, we were a Division I NC2A sport. So lots of opportunities that I just took for granted until I got a little bit older and realized that wasn't necessarily the case for the generations that came before me. So very grateful for those things and the efforts that women have paved for me in my life. So we're in the early 1980s, of course, in love with swimming. I got a degree in physical education and decided I wasn't going to teach. I was going to start being a swim coach, still teaching. So in 1980, I started coaching swimming. And I grew up coaching in the same swim club here in Glendale, Arizona, actually. And I had a BHAG. Anybody a fan of Jim Collins? Read the book Good to Great? A BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. And my BHAG, when I first started coaching as a very driven young coach, now you've got to listen carefully to this. I was going to be the first female Division I head coach of men's swimming. That's a BHAG, because it doesn't even exist today, okay? So, but I was excited about coaching, and I loved working with children, and I loved inspiring people to do things they didn't think they were capable of doing. So when I was there at Glendale, our head coach ended up moving on for another opportunity, and he said, Rose can do it. You don't have to do a search. She's got this. Anybody work with nonprofit boards, especially parent-run boards of athletic, back to the Little League mentality? It works for the parents too. Well, we had lots of money on our club. We were blessed. And they decided that they were going to do a search for a named coach, which really meant male coach. And I was invited to throw my hat in the ring, which I did. Long story short, this interim period went on for about 18 months. And while this interim period was going on, we won the 1987 state championship. We had several kids go on to compete at the national level. We had a 1988 Olympic trial qualifier. Things were going well. The parents on the team were very happy. The board was still going full steam ahead to get a named coach in. So when it came down to the point, there were 3 finalists, 2 males and then me. So after the 2 males had turned the position down, okay, it was like, yes! They decided to reopen the search. Of course, right? Mind you, I'm about 27 years old right at this particular point in time. And I'm in total shock. I had also been fortunate enough to be recruited and interviewed for a coaching position in Las Vegas with David Marsh, who you probably won't recognize the name, but he was the 2012 and 2016 Olympic coach. And it was like, okay, I'm going to go to Las Vegas. Also, it didn't hurt that he was very good looking. Sorry to my husband here. But I said, I'm just going to say, you know, screw you people, I'm going to Vegas. Well, as I got to consider this, and the board president at the time stood up to our board, and he said, I'm out of here, I'm resigning, and I haven't talked to her, but I wouldn't blame Rose if she considered a discrimination suit. Well, this scared the shit out of the board. And they were like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Well, the second guy that they interviewed, his name was Bill Peak. Some of you who know swimming or recognize the name Mary T. He coached Mary T., Madam Butterfly. She set the world record at age 13 in 1981, and that record stood for 20 years. So I was really excited at the thought that Bill Peak was going to come and coach our team. I thought, this is a mentor, somebody I can learn from. All the coaches would be very happy. Well, he quickly sized up the situation with our board and decided to decline an offer. So he called me before he called the board to turn it down, and he said, Rosie, I'm going to tell you what I asked for, because you don't deserve a penny less. Meanwhile, my interim salary was $33,000. The head coach before me was making $50,000. Okay? And he said, I asked for $60,000, and probably more important than the money, I asked for a permanent seat on the nominating committee so I could make sure that we get the right people on the board. And I thought, how smart is that? You know, you get to pick your own boss kind of thing, you know? So anyway, he turned it down. They realized they would have a discrimination suit on their hands, so they offered me the job. My salary was going to be, it was $33,000, $33,500. Okay? And they decided at that point, this young coach, they would need to write my goals for me. So I'm sitting here going like, you know, to hell with you guys, I'm going to Las Vegas. But I went to talk this over with my mom. Meanwhile, the swim parents, who were very happy with what was going on, got together, signed a petition, and they started to raise money. They raised $8,000. The parents, outside of the fees of the club, because they thought I was worthy of the money. And so I went to my mom, I said, Mom, I gotta ask you a question. And my dad passed away when I was 13. He was an athletic coach all growing up. And I said, I'm gonna ask you a question, but I'm not gonna ask you what you think. I wanna ask you, if Dad was right here right now, what would Dad tell me to do? And she said, that's easy. She said, your dad would say that regardless of the money or the title, do you think you can stay there and make a difference? You already have. If the answer is yes, then you should stay and prove those assholes wrong. And she goes, and if the answer is no, get on the plane and go work with David Marsh. So I met with the parents that signed the petition and were raising money for me. And I said, I'm going to take this job on one condition. I said, the money should be coming from the club, not from you. So I need a commitment from all of you, one at a time, to replace these idiots on the board so we can work together to build a legacy and provide the program that these kids deserve. They agreed to do that. I agreed to stay. So we went on to have great success, and once again, right after I left the program, they had a 9th at the Olympic trials, Adam Bach in the 200 butterfly, oddly enough. I was recruited away to go work for USA Swimming at the Olympic Training Center in 1990. I was so excited to be there. That was really a great honor. There was probably only about 30 people on the staff at the time, and I was the club services director, and I was hired to run programming for all of the clubs in United States Swimming. So I was really excited. Shortly after that, I got promoted to the Director of Club Services. About the same time, there was a new position created called the Athlete and Coach Development Director. And I thought, oh my gosh, this might be really fun because I can work more directly with the athletes and with the coaches, which I was a coach. I thought this would be a very fun position. So I went in to speak to the executive director, and I inquired about the position, and he said, oh, Rose, he goes, yes, it's going to be a lateral move. It won't be a promotion. It won't be any more money. I'm really happy where you are and what you're doing. So I kind of thought, rewind back to what happened to me at Glendale. For some reason, and you know, I can hear my mother's voice right now, write it all down, document. So I went into my office and I wrote all this down and I documented everything that Ray said to me. Well, lo and behold, they hire a man at significantly more money than I was making. So they were smart enough to know something might be awry. So the HR director was instructed to meet with me and inform me this. I remember these meetings. I remember sitting in the exact office. And the HR director said to me, I've been asked to speak with you. We have hired a gentleman, and he's going to be coming in at significantly more money than you're making. And I go, what's significant? 10,000? She goes, 15,000. And I went, well, we have a problem. So I would like a meeting with the executive director, and I'm probably going to inform the national board. because I thought this is ridiculous. Shame, fool me once kind of thing. So anyway, to make a long story short, within a period of weeks, I had a $15,000 raise. And talk about inequity, that bumped me above all the women senior directors that were my boss. So guess what? They all got a raise too. So and I love swimming. I'm not going to bash anything about swimming. This was, in the early 90s, but I'm telling you, where did I learn to stand up for myself? Well, I wish she was here, but it's my mom. My mom was widowed at 39, 4 kids, all teenagers. And somewhere, my mom was a feminist when feminism was an F word, really, right? And she was one of the first members of NOW, National Organization of Women. So I learned these lessons that I didn't know were going to need to hold me in good stead as I was a young adult. And I share this with all of you today because guess what? I'm learning those lessons now. The reason I'm in WOSAC is because of my own daughters. My oldest daughter, Carly, studies, she's a PhD student in New York and is really focused in history, but mostly in the Holocaust. And we have constant discussions about how important it is to learn from the past. History has such new meaning for me, not only because of the subject matter and the study of the Holocaust, but also because if we don't learn from the sins and the great things of the past, we're destined to repeat them. And it also inspired me to realize that we not only have to stand up for ourselves, but other people who are being treated inequitably, whatever they are. And this gave me the courage to stand up, speak up, and I encourage you guys to do the same. So I say just do it, like a Nike thing. I hate to say that. But also, and I thought this was, I stole this, my husband gave this to me. And as Billy Joel says when he ends all of his concerts, do you know what he says? Don't take any shit. Thank you very much.
It's wonderful. When Rose just first told me this story, snippets of it over coffee, I was just like, you have to tell this, like on a stage in front of people, and I'm so, so grateful and glad that you did. Please give another round of applause for Rose Snyder. And it reminds me, I recently just heard an interview with Gloria Steinem. And she was saying, somebody said, aren't you sort of proud of how far we have come as women? And she said, well, yes, we have come very far. And she said, we still have a long way to go, but it's also an excellent reminder of how far we can go. So, Rose, especially, your story especially, thank you for that. 'Cause it's a wonderful reminder of how far we can go, especially if we all work together. So, absolutely. All right. Well, that is the end of our show. Thank you all so much for coming and supporting us and our storytellers. There are some people I really need to thank. First and foremost, I don't see her. Lee. Spence, is Lee here? Where's Lee? She's outside. On your way out, Lee Spencer. She is our fantastic coordinator for WOSAC and GWS. We cannot do these events without her. She'd be like turning red if she were in here, so probably for the best. Our phenomenal venue. Thank you to the Unscrewed Theater and Chris Seidman. Thank you so much for putting up with us today. And we do have some board members here today. If you want any information, we invite you to please consider becoming a member for WOSAC and help support us while we put on events like this. Our next big one, I have to do a shameless plug, is LunaFest. Yes, that will be March 31st. That is an all-female run film festival. It's a short film festival, shorts by, for, and about women. And that is going to be at the Loft March 31st. So I'd love to invite you to come out and also support that. WOSAC board members, please raise your hand here. Yes. All right. If you have any questions about membership, please feel free and come speak to to us about that. And then I would like to invite all of our storytellers up on stage one more time, just for a group round of applause. Please welcome Lavina, Gina, Cassandra, Bella, and Rose. And if somebody could, grab a picture. Oh yeah, let me grab this. I like the papers on the floor actually.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's a nice artistic touch. Let me grab some photos.
So y'all have to send these to
Wonderful.
Mel so she can send it to us.
Yes.
Great job, ladies.
Thank you for coming out and supporting community storytelling. We hope you have a lovely afternoon, and please come see us again for our next storytelling event, to be announced later. Have a lovely afternoon, everybody.